Yo, what's poppin', everybody? How y'all doing out there today? Welcome back to the podcast, another episode of Caffeine and Green with your man, Conor Cardenas. And before we get into it today, man, I just want to give a huge shout out to the title sponsor of Caffeine and Green, which is 7 Seas Roasting Company, coming straight out of San Diego, my home roaster. Now, what makes this roastery so sick is that we get to work with these farmers. We're not just getting these coffees, we're working with them directly and making sure that everybody's taken care of. So we're not taking care of just the consumer, we're taking care of that farmer as well. So it's really awesome. We get to showcase these coffees. Now, full transparency, I am the head roaster at 7 Seas. But regardless, you know that the coffee that I'm giving you is straight fire, yo. So if you head over to the website, 7seasroasting.com, use my code C&G at checkout, you're going to get 3 bags of coffee for $30. That's an amazing deal because 2 bags of coffee is essentially $32. So you're getting a bag for free. It's a no-brainer. So you can go over to the website, choose from any of the coffees that we have, like our dark Guatemala, which is chocolatey and it's full-bodied and it's a little bit of our dark roast. And it's just, we have other options. We have a Peruvian, we have our Lao coffees, the Fodom Quan, our new Lao, and Setapung as well. So we got options, people. So use that coffee code C&G at checkout, and you'll be good. My guest today, Rachel Dillon, also known as the Cold Brew Chick. You guys might have heard of her. She has her own successful podcast. She has an extensive portfolio on her Instagram of all the cool things that she does on her daily basis, and what it is to be a coffee influencer. You'll understand why I said that. But yeah, all jokes aside, Rachel was an amazing guest. She was super cool. It was really awesome to hear how somebody who's living their passion just kept getting after it, just kept going. And now it's leading her to amazing things and getting to collaborate with some of the coffee industry's biggest names. So I really enjoyed doing this podcast, and I really hope you guys enjoyed as well. Rachel Dillon, this is your time to shine, homegirl. Let's go. Give me caffeine and green. It's your boy Conor. What's good? Good. Caffeine and green. And we are live. Yes.
Live.
Yes. Rachel, is it Dillon?
It is.
It's
yeah.
Rachel Dillon. Welcome to Caffeine and Green.
Thank you.
Yes. The Cold Brew Chick has arrived.
Yeah.
Dude.
It was quite a journey to get here, unfortunately.
Yeah. Tell me about this journey.
Oh, gosh. I typed in my phone whatever address you gave me, because you know how Apple just recognizes the address and you can click on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I clicked on it and it took me to the address. I'm like, okay, great. Going. Then it takes me on this road where it's just like a 2-lane and it's all this traffic and you can't like get over into the other lane. So you just got to sit there, and it was all just for a stop sign. And then finally got out of there, got to the location it took me to, wasn't your house. So then I had to go figure out what is your address and then go down and find that. So needless to say, it took me like an hour and a half to get here when it should have been like half that time.
Oh, an hour and a half?
I'm so sorry,
Oh,
but we're here now.
I'm not tripping. You're here now. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Wow. That's unfortunate. Dude, I don't ever mess with Apple Maps. I always do Waze.
I know. I'm one of the few that still does Apple.
Okay.
But that's because with Waze, when I've seen it being used, it's been really delayed with giving instructions.
Okay.
So I was like, I don't want to use Waze. And then I was like, well, why would I download Google Maps when I already have an Apple map on my phone?
There you go.
But now after today, I think I'm convinced I need
Google
to
Maps is pretty good.
convert. Yeah.
I don't know about their driving, but definitely walking. I always use the subway and the walking apps.
Mm-hmm.
Europe, New York, perfect every time. So it's pretty chill. Just food for thought.
You might have sold me today.
Well, I mean, the reason I wanted to have you on the show today is because basically of what I first said right when we started was you're the Cold Brew Chick. This is for me, honestly, to hear a woman call herself a chick, it's refreshing for me.
Really?
Yes, because I used to work at the Chopra Center. You ever heard of Deepak Chopra? The meditation.
Who hasn't?
Okay, cool. Just making sure. Yeah, I used to work there, and just how I was raised and just lived my life. I've always, this chick over here, whatever like that. I'll say that and it's not like derogatory or by any means. It's just like, describing a girl or something. And I said something like that, and I worked with an all girls. I was the only guy on this like section of the Chober Center, and my manager had to pull me outside and was like, "Hey, some of the ladies have been feeling really uncomfortable that you've been using the word chick when you refer to girls." And I was like, "Okay." And I said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know that was like a big deal. I didn't mean any harm by it, And it, from that point on, if I said chick, I'd always apologize to a girl. Like, yo, my bad. I didn't mean to. Don't want to offend, So when I saw your Instagram and your podcast stuff, I was like, cold brew chick. I was like, hell yeah, this is tight. So she won't get bummed on that.
I didn't even know that was considered to be derogatory.
Yeah,
that's a thing.
I was news to me because I didn't.
Wow.
I was never like, it would be like, oh yeah, that's the homie and his chick over there, or something like that.
Yeah. If anything, the only reason I didn't want to be called cold brew chick when I was creating the name is that I thought people would associate chick with like chickens. Honestly. And I'm like, oh, people are going to think of me as like a little chick with like sunglasses and a cold brew. And I don't want to be thought of as like a chicken,
Yeah.
That was honestly why I initially didn't want that name. But now I know there's like another thing too. Wow, that's weird.
Yeah. I didn't, I was taken back as well. And from that point on, especially working in coffee, I feel like there's a lot of people who could be really offended by it just as, because that's just how it is sometimes. But I always, it's always refreshing when somebody's like, nah, dude, totally fine.
It's all good.
Yeah. Sick. So, I mean, how did you, I'm out of my notes here. Sorry. How did you get into coffee?
Coffee or cold brew?
Coffee. Yeah.
I had just left school. Was this 2013? I had just finished my first semester at Cal State Fullerton, was en route to do musical theater, be a Broadway star, and quickly decided it's not what I wanted to do. So I came home and was trying to, switch my major, figure out what I wanted to do. And around this time, living with my parents, kind of get into like their routine and their habits. And it's funny because to this day, this is what they drink. They make Starbucks the vanilla flavored coffee, and they make a pot of that in the morning, and that is their coffee. And so I never drank coffee before, but I just figured, oh, I'll try it. They drink it. Why not? Turned out I really liked it. And that kind of opened the door for me to explore other coffee. I like bitter things, so drinking black coffee was just my go-to. And anytime I would order a coffee, I would just order a black drip coffee. And that was what I drank for about 2 years.
Whoa. All right. So that was your intro to it. And then what led it, did that just progress into cold brew?
Kind of, yeah. I noticed so about 2 years I was drinking it. And then I noticed that after I would drink a cup of hot coffee, I would get an acid reflux attack. And learning about acid reflux and GERD, there's certain foods that trigger it for certain people, right? It's not kind of like a one size fits all disease. It's kind of more individualized. And so there's certain foods like for coffee and lemon and chocolate and spicy foods that can trigger it in people. And then for me, of all things, it was coffee. And I thought, well, this is great. Like, I feel like a 50-year-old woman. I can't drink my coffee and enjoy it. And was kind of bummed because I didn't want to not drink it. I wanted to enjoy my coffee, but I also didn't want to create a relationship with the Tums bottle and, take antacids all the time to get rid of these acid reflux attacks. So I was kind of in this conundrum of what to do. And lucky for me, the timing was perfect because this was right around when cold brew was really becoming popular. And Starbucks had started to offer it, and you were seeing it more and more on grocery shelves and, articles online. So I learned about it, and I thought, I've kind of always liked iced coffee more than hot coffee, being in San Diego.
Yeah.
We are just in a naturally beautifully weathered state where iced coffee is just appropriate all the time. And I thought, okay, I'll go try it and we'll see. And first sip was hooked. It was, to me, the best cup of coffee I had ever had because it was just so much richer and decadent and pulled out the notes in coffee that I like, which is more of the chocolate and caramel and, the boldness. And then I liked it was cold. And then I liked that I had no acid reflux afterwards. So I was like, here we go. Found my drink.
Dang. So that's something I don't really understand. I'm having some questions about myself in terms of acid reflux.
Yeah.
What does that feel like when you have it?
It depends on how far up the acid goes. For most people, it's what you would call a heartburn. So you just kind of feel like a warmth in your chest that's not very pleasant. And for some people, because essentially what it is I'm going to get all scientific here and put on my nutrition cap.
Yeah.
The esophageal sphincter, which is what kind of separates your esophagus from your stomach, is weakened, and it essentially isn't keeping things closed. And because of that, stomach acid is leaking up into your esophagus. And certain foods for certain people relax it enough so that that acid is able to travel through. And coffee is a huge culprit for people for two things. One, the caffeine. They believe sometimes caffeine can do that, but also the acid content, right? So the acid goes up, and then if it hangs out in your chest, it's that heartburn, but it can sometimes even go up into like your throat. And that's when it gets kind of painful, because you just kind of, if you've ever vomited before, you know how you kind of, it feels weird afterwards, because essentially what it was, that was that stomach acid that went through, your mouth and everything. Mm-hmm. Sorry, it's getting really graphic.
No, I genuinely want to know this, because I was wondering if it was going to be an acid reflux thing, because I've been going to the doctor for it.
Oh, you have?
Yeah,
okay.
So that's why I'm like, what is, they asked if I've ever had acid reflux, and I said, no, I don't know what this is. Like, it kind of feels like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But it like goes up and then it goes down.
Yeah. And it kind of hangs out in your throat a little bit, or sometimes you like burp and you can feel it. It depends. And that's the funny thing with like acid reflux, is that it is individualized, right? And what triggers it for you may not trigger it for me, and what I feel may not be what you feel,
Yeah, it's interesting.
Very different.
Damn. Yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting. So you basically, because of the acid reflux, you can drink cold brew, and that's kind of how this thing got started for you. You just got obsessed and found a niche within the specialty coffee industry to promote the cold brew. And like, what made you want to start doing that?
Yeah, I mean, once I had found cold brew and had learned that I could drink this drink with no problems, I was just naturally checking out coffee shops and checking out their cold brews, because I wanted, to see what they tasted like. But it wasn't until I think it was a year and a half or 2 years after I discovered it, when I was finishing up my major. I was at San Diego State majoring in nutrition, and I had to do a project. And at the time I was like, I want to learn more about cold brew, but I wasn't quite sure what was the best way to do it, right? And so in my like college research mind, I thought, I'll like go on the internet and look up articles, and then I'll create a PowerPoint presentation and present that, and that'll be my project. But I went on the internet and just didn't find what I was looking for. I wanted to know more about like, why did people pick certain beans, and what was it about cold brew that made it so that I could drink it with no problems? Just kind of like the nitty gritty of what made it so unique and different. And luckily I had a great professor who was very, just kind of gave me free reign and just said, have fun and go learn. So when I didn't find what I was looking for on the internet, I had the idea instead of, how about I go to every coffee shop in San Diego, and along the way I try their cold brew, and I talk to the baristas, I talk to the roasters, I talk to them about cold brew and what they know and how they made their cold brew, and get that knowledge that way. And so that became my project, was I was going to go do this, right? So I found, all the stores in San Diego that had it, and I needed a way to display my work, to show to my professor. So that's how I created the Instagram.
You created the Instagram for a college report?
Yeah.
That's sick. Okay.
Yeah. And I had always wanted to enter the blogger / I guess influencer space in some way. I've always liked the idea of having my own brand and identity. And I dabbled with, how people say, I started a blog, and, they do it for like 2 months and then it just disappears. That was me with quite a few of them. And so I always liked the idea of having something that was my own. And so what pushed me to finally like make it more than a project was this identity, like, this is something that no one else is really doing, and I can make it my own. I can give it a name, and this can be my thing, right? Tight. So that's what really like drove me to like make it more than a project and actually expand beyond it and give it a name of Brew Chick.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was your college. Did you get an A on it with your project? Of
course I did.
So did you have to bring up your Instagram page and say, look, this is how I started it. This is what,
I think, I gave him a link to it, and I shared with him like, I've been to, because I didn't meet all the shops by the time the project was done. I think it was in one semester, and I only hit, I think, 50 shops. There's a lot of coffee in San Diego, as I very
Yeah,
quickly
so
learned.
many.
So much coffee, which is fantastic. But in the case of the project, I had only scraped the surface of what there was. So I had to tell him, like, look, this is what I've got so far, but here's what I've learned. Because just from going to those, 50 shops alone, I'd learned so much about cold brew and specialty coffee. And actually started to kind of begin my relationship with specialty coffee and fall in love with what's going on in San Diego.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's one thing I wanted to ask you about is, as you're not essentially working in a cafe or have like that background, what have you found that's the most interesting, or maybe even would entice you to come into the coffee industry? Because I see that you go to a lot of the trade shows, like you do the LA Coffee Fest or the Indianapolis one. Is that where you
Yeah,
were
I
just
went to
at?
one in Indianapolis. Yeah.
So you're going to events. I mean, you're going out there. I mean, is it more so just for your own personal brand, or are you looking to like make your way into the coffee industry?
More so the former than the latter. I've always not considered myself part of the coffee industry. I've never been a barista. I've never worked for a coffee shop. I've thought about it. I almost did become a barista when I was really desperate for a job. But I kind of like being this liaison between the coffee industry and people that are looking to explore specialty coffee, right? And that's still how I see myself. Is I'm not a part of the Specialty Coffee Association for any means, but I'm very aware of what's going on, and I keep myself informed to then share that information to the public. And that's why I go to trade shows like Coffee Fest, for example, to just kind of keep on touch of what people are doing with cold brew, what people are doing with coffee, and then how can I translate that information to my audience so that they can go explore these shops. So technically I wouldn't, maybe some people would, but I personally don't I see myself as the biggest fan of specialty coffee.
Okay. Interesting. The biggest fan of specialty coffee. I like
Yeah.
that. That's pretty chill. I'm a fan of specialty coffee myself, but I'm around it so much. It's like, wow. I feel it's hard not to be consumed by it when you're basically running helping run two different cafes where you're concerned about like what espresso is going to be there, what's there, this, that, and this. It's like, whew, it just comes like an all encompassing career, like all consuming in a sense, all positive, of course, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go to a foreign country. Have you gone and like done it international yet?
Well, yes and no. Should I share? This is actually kind of funny. The only place I've been to internationally is Spain.
Okay.
I went to Madrid for my study abroad for school. And when I was there, I hadn't started Brew Chick yet, but I was drinking cold brew as an avid drinker, and I was excited to be like, oh, I wonder like what cold brew they'll have in Spain. And my Spanish is pretty poor. But I went to a shop and I was trying to tell him like I wanted an iced coffee, and I kept trying to look up translations of like what's the proper translation for cold brew or iced coffee, right? So I like was trying to tell the guy that's what I wanted, and he gave me an espresso, literally one espresso shot with an ice cube in it, and that was the drink he gave me, and I just kind of bought it and said, okay, I'll drink it. That was the worst acid reflux I'd ever had in my life. Oh, it was awful. Like the coffee was good, but afterwards I was on the bus just like dying because I'm like, oh my God, I can just feel like all this acid in my chest and my throat. And luckily someone who was there had brought Tums, but she didn't. I would have, oh man, it was really rough.
How long does it last for?
Well, since I took the Tums, not very long at all. But if I don't do anything, probably like an hour or two. And the thing is, like, it could also kind of trigger back again if I eat. So if I have like a coffee in the morning and I don't feel it, but then I eat maybe, a couple hours later, or I eat something maybe a little acidic, for dinner, it can kind of trigger it and then I can feel it.
Whoa. Dude, now I'm like starting to think of all the things I'll be eating that might trigger this, because I just eat them all the time every single day. It would be like a bunch of hot sauce, a lot of citrus, a lot of coffee. It's like all that is super acidic. It's like, damn, maybe that's what it is.
It could be.
Dude, this is so interesting.
Later,
I'm so glad you actually brought this up, because I legit have been thinking this is like currently going on in my life right now. So I'm like, damn, what? Like, that's super interesting. So you said you were a theater major at Fullerton. But then I heard you say nutritionist. So
yes.
What else are you pursuing right now? I mean, what's your what's your career path, I guess?
Well, as of today, officially, I finished my dietetic internship. Today, I got the official email saying I'm done.
Sick.
Oh, I know. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Which is what you have to do to become a registered dietitian.
Okay.
So when you major in nutrition, there's two paths you can go. You can just get a major in nutrition, and then from there you can do different things, or you can go down a different route and become a dietitian. And that includes, once you finish your major, you take this internship, and then you take an exam to get your credential, right? And I like the idea of being an RD because once you become one, there's so many doors that are open to you. I think everyone loves nutrition and talking about it. It's very trendy and it's such a big field right now, especially with all the research that's coming out, and it's a crazy time to be in nutrition. So I had picked that when I was, figuring out my life at the time, back when I had left school, because I developed an interest in health and fitness and had to choose between, do I go down the kinesiology route, do that, or do I do nutrition? And I thought, well, I'd rather eat a salad than run a mile. So I think I'll do nutrition. And that's what kind of sold me there. But yeah, I just finished that. So take the exam and find a job. I haven't had a job for 10 months now.
Wow.
It's been crazy.
Lucky?
Oh, no. It's been awful.
It's been awful.
So, because I'm so used to like working and having an income and supporting yourself.
Of course.
So to go 10 months because the internship, it's full time and unpaid.
Oof.
So to just have to focus on that when you have like that stress of money in the background, and then running Brew Chick, costs money too, and it's just a lot going on. And I've always been asked and wondered, like, well, would you just do Brew Chick and that would be like your source of income? And I think that's really trendy right now. You see a lot of people pursuing blogging and pursuing, being an influencer so they can make that their sole source of income and like that's their job, which is awesome. But it's such a saturated space right now. And even though I'm doing something that's, super niche, just cold brew coffee, I don't know that I could ever make that like a sole source of income or ever get to that point, So
yeah, I mean, but I don't think you even really should worry about that. I mean, if it came down to you're making any money at all on it, I'd say that's a big win.
Absolutely.
That for me would be amazing. But I mean, the thing about the coffee industry is it doesn't really seem like an industry where there's a bunch of billionaires or millionaires, So, I mean, if you made any money being somewhat of an influencer through cold brew, I mean, chalk it up. That's a win for the day. That's a win for you in life. I mean, that's nice.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that term though, influencer.
Yeah, I don't. It's hella funny. My wife says that a lot. She's like, oh, she always jokes. She's like, now that I'm an influencer, just like as a joke. And I'm like, that's a thing? But it really is a thing.
It is.
For people to be considered influencers. She'll come up to me and she'll be like, are you influencing right now? And I said, yes. Yeah, because to run a page, as you know, it legitly becomes a full-time job. If you really want it to look good and have a theme and have people to really brand recognition, and then it becomes marketing. I mean, that's what I went to school for. It was marketing and PR, and to really market and to know your analytics and to start to analyze all these things. And it's like, dude, it's for a social media platform. If you but if you really want it to be good and not look like crap, it's like, dude, full-time job.
Yeah.
It's all day, knowing when to post, do all these other things.
And it's funny that your wife mentioned too, influencing, because that's the thing is like when you say influencer, I'm sure there's like a stereotype that comes to mind from most people, right? Like a girl in an outfit, posing for the day, right? That's like usually
most times in a bikini or sunglasses or something.
That's what people
skinny tee.
Yeah, that's what people think of like when you think of influencer, right? But what it really comes down to is you are influencing people to do something, whether it's to buy something, to whatever. You're trying to make them create action, right? So that's why I'm like, I guess I technically am, because what I want to influence people to do is to drink cold brew, to buy cold brew, to explore cold brew, right?
Check out the cafes that you've been to.
Exactly.
Try that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I like the term cold brew enthusiast more than influencer.
Hey, whatever you got to do to set yourself apart. I mean, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, the way I've been looking at it is that it's the newest way to build a portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
If you are really the person who's running that full time, nobody else is doing it. I mean, the followers for me, if you if you keep pursuing something and you're going, those are going to come. It doesn't matter. You don't have to fake the funk to build. I'd rather get authentic. Like right now, I think, because Caffeine Green's been up for about 6 months. About in 4 months is when I launched it in February, but I've been doing it since December. So I would say even maybe like 4 or 5 months. The 300 followers already for me was like, dude, those are authentic people that I've either met through coffee, skateboarding, doing all those other things. I'm like, I'd rather take 300 authentics than 10,000 fake bots or fake people who don't even care, like are gonna go through your cleaner and just like follow you, unfollow you, like because you're following them now or something like that. It's all one big game, but I don't know. It's a lot.
Yeah, and I was lucky enough. I had a great mentor who gave me a saying, where focus goes, energy flows, right? And so and it's very easy, to be focusing on your follower count and who's liking my posts, and put a lot of focus and energy on it, because that's what, in my case, that's what drives, how much influence, I put that in quotes, that I have, right? But the thing is that I can't control that. I can't force someone to follow me. I can't force someone to like or comment on my posts. I can't control that. I can control the content I produce. I can control making sure my website's up to date. I can control those things. So instead of focusing so much on followers and likes and focusing on your content instead, and you're right, it just naturally just kind of flows.
Yeah. And it just, I think when you're putting it's that portfolio aspect is that back in the day when you're doing not back in the day, just like even 10 years ago, when you're making basically a big ass book of things that you've done for interviews or for whatever, especially for marketing jobs, to be like, yeah, this is what I did, this is the event, this, that, blah, 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 whatever. Now you could just use your phone. Be like, look at this. This is what I do right here. Boom. Whether it's using a site to edit your pictures and then uploading those and then, thinking outside of the box and really just having things, again, brand recognition, all those other things. It's like, dude, you just boom, pull out your phone. Look at that. I got my portfolio right here. Got a name, holler at me. You can even follow my portfolio kind of thing. I don't know. Cause I have like the Caffeine and Green one, but then everything that's on there is on my personal, just cause it's like, why not have 2 avenues, right? That's marketing 101. If you could do the same, have 2 channels, more people. It's like, essentially I'd have like 300 followers on the Caffeine and Green, which is like nothing. And then I have a little under 1,000 on my personal, but it's like, put them together, boom, over 1,000. There you go.
I've had that issue actually with determining that line of like, how much of my personal life do I share on Brew Chick? Because I always want the focus to be on the cold brew and the coffee and, and the reviews and blah, blah, blah. But people do want to know a bit about like who you are and what you do and whatnot, because they want to know it's like a human being creating this content, right? So I've kind of like, I have like my own account as well. That's like my personal one. And that one, it's kind of nice because it's cathartic. I don't really care if like my pictures look super good, or I don't care if like everything's matching. It's just a place for me to like put my pictures that I want to put of my life,
Yeah, of course.
So it's been like a little balance of like, well, how much do I divulge about myself on Brew Chick and how much do I just leave for my other account? It's like a balancing act.
I like to think of it as a window, like an insight to how I would actually be. That way when people see me, they're like, oh, dude, you're just as like what you're putting out on Instagram. It's like, don't fake the funk. That's I don't know. I don't care. I just don't even care if like I see people do, like when I meet them in real life sometimes, not all the time. By no means is it anybody that I've had on the show, but I've met other people in real life and they're just like whatever. Like, but you're like, on Instagram, you're like pretty chill, but in real life you suck. Like it's like, nah, just keep it real. Just be, that's what I like having this podcast for, is people are definitely going to learn more about you when they hear you talking all the time, if people are consistently listening.
As they should. Follow, subscribe, Caffeine and Green.
Boom. That's a plug right there. I did not tell her to do that, but that's awesome.
He did not.
But that's actually one thing I definitely want to get into as well.
Words are hard.
Yeah. Was you have your own podcast as well.
I do.
So the Cold Brew Chick podcast.
It
And
is.
Along with social media, that's a full-time job. Doing this and really making the content sound good and adjusting on your mishaps and constantly learning and teaching yourself how to do these things. What have you found like the hardest part, the best parts? Why did you want to do a podcast?
Yeah, I started a podcast about a year and a half ago, October 2017, so almost 2 years ago. And it just was a natural thing to do because what would happen is when I went, I was at the point now where all I was doing is just reviewing the San Diego coffee shops, right? And what would happen is I would go to a shop and I'd start talking to a barista or the owner or roaster or whatever. And sometimes I would find I was at these shops for an hour and a half, sometimes even 2 hours, just chatting to them about coffee and their shop and their story. And it got to the point after this happened many, many times. I'm like, I should record these conversations because there has to be at least one person out there that would find this as interesting as I do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of looked up and did research on. I knew podcast was kind of growing. That's what my mentor at the time was telling me is, audio is going to be the big thing. That's where content is going. So I kind of talked to her about some ideas, and I hired a guy here in Encinitas actually to kind of help me start it and get, like the cheapest equipment possible. Because at the time I'm bare bones, like college student.
Yeah.
I just what's the most cost effective way to do this? And so he showed me, which the best mic to use and whatnot. And I just started. And I always go with the focus of either people that make fantastic cold brew or people that make really unique cold brews, right? And just have that platform for them to share what led them to this creation, what their journey in coffee was, what inspired them to create it. And that's how I've been able to get really cool guests on there. Like I loved talking to Modern Times and kind of picking their brains on how a brewery became like one of the top coffee people in the industry right now. And some of the big names like Chameleon Cold Brew, like talking to them about their whole sustainability project that I had no idea about, and just them really like diving into what they're doing there. I have one with Stumptown coming up, which was like a fangirl moment for me because Stumptown to me is like the OG of cold brew.
Do you do it by phone, or are you gonna go up there?
I do in person, but I also use a program called Zencaster that allows me to record remotely. And it's really great because the audio quality, it kind of changes it. So it fixes everything for you. And that's been my go-to lately is I've preferred to do it remote. But I do like this, like being in person with someone and like seeing their facial reactions and everything. Like that's how I prefer it. But it is nice though that we have the technology now that we can, record remotely. Or I recorded one.
What do you mean by that? Record remotely?
Like, so it's someone that's not here in this
Oh,
present
okay.
time.
Okay, that's what you meant. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I was like, wait, what? But yeah, okay. So record remotely. So that's what you are doing that with Stumptown?
Yeah, I recorded that remotely with them. I recorded one with a guy in Australia. He has a cold brew liqueur. And my biggest fear when I started it, and even when I started Brew Chick and was officially going to like make this a thing, was that I was going to run out of content. Because when you do go more niche on more specific things, you can run out of ideas, or you can run out of, things to review or whatnot. And I thought, one day I'm just going to run out and I'm going to have no idea what to do or what to say. What I've learned from exploring cold brew is that's the complete opposite case. There is so much cold brew out there. There's so much unique cold brew out there. And of all the places, San Diego is the number one place where there's just so much cold brew and so much innovation. So I'm so glad I started. I was so scared too, but I'm really glad I did. And it's been so fun. I love podcasting.
That's awesome. How did you, for stuff like Stumptown and Modern Times and then Chameleon especially, how did you get in contact with them? Did you just essentially cold email? Just like, hey, what's up? I have this podcast. Want to talk to somebody? Or
a combination of both. So like Modern Times, I knew them because when I had first started Brew Chick and, was reviewing shops, I knew they were a bigger company because my family is a huge fan of their beer. So I had just did a cold email to them to see if I could just talk to someone about their cold brew. And they were so generous and kind and gave me a tour of the facility.
Really?
And we had a private sampling of cold brew. And this is when I first started too. I had maybe 200 followers, if that, nothing. And so I kind of had already a connection with them. And so I had an email contact I could already talk to.
Nice.
And that one, it did take a while to happen because I'm sure you know this too. One of the biggest struggles of podcasting with guests is scheduling. It is so hard sometimes with guests to find a right date and a right time to make the podcast happen. And I think that one, we talked about it for 8 months before our episode actually happened. Yeah. But that was great. And then Chameleon and Stumptown, the bigger names, I go to, there's a trade show every year called Expo West There's also Expo East, but Expo West is here in Anaheim. And it's this massive expo where there's just like every natural product you can think of is there. I mean, it's just massive. And there's a lot of cold brew companies that are there, including the big names and also some smaller names as well. So every year I go, so I can, catch up with the cold brew booths. And that's usually when they're like highlighting their new products and kind of showcasing what's coming up. So going to those shows, I was able to, to get the right business card for the right person to make that work. So that's, if you're in the food industry or health industry at all, I highly recommend going to Expo West. It is just so much fun. You get so much like free samples and stuff. It's a crazy time. But yeah, part of it too is just, making that email and pitching yourself and hoping they say yes. Like Stumptown, I just was like randomly, hey, would you be interested in coming on my podcast? And they were thrilled. They were so happy to do it, so that was just like really.
You're just talking to somebody from like the PR team or something like that?
Yeah, that's who I emailed. And then I got, his name is Bryce, I believe. He's the head like cold brew maker for Stumptown.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, it was just like, for me, like a fangirl moment, like, oh my gosh, like I'm talking to Stumptown.
That's super
After,
awesome.
50 episodes of the podcast. So yeah, it's just cool, like to see, as you create more episodes and get kind of more fun guests on, like your hard work, like showcase into something.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, that just goes back to that portfolio thing. I mean, along with Instagram as your visual portfolio, you have an audio portfolio as well of the things that you've done. I mean, I take it you're doing this all by yourself as well, like I am myself, and it's scheduling. It's the scheduling is so gnarly. You have to just go back and forth all day, every day. People are going to cancel. People are going to come in unannounced,
or don't show up,
or hope. Knock on wood, I haven't had that one happen yet, because I'm like pretty on it with that when it comes to that. As far as that, yeah, I just make sure I'm like, no, this is the day you're gonna be able to hear me. No, you're not gonna just hit me up. I'd rather that than just don't show up. That would suck.
That's happened once or twice before.
Really?
But usually it's because they got the date or the time wrong. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always try to make sure. I always I'll hit them up the day before. Hey, just confirm me for tomorrow, or maybe like midweek, depending on the day. But yeah, that scheduling, getting everything set up, getting the social media aspect. I mean, there's so much that goes into it, and I think in today's day and age, especially with everything so tech driven, when you can do all of that and show people, that's almost better than having like a college degree, kind of. Because like if you have a college degree and then you can actually do all of this, and then even if your college degree was in this, that'd be even better. But it's like, yeah, boom, you got this, boom, right here.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Can do it.
This 100%. I mean, it is super hard work to really keep it up to date, keep the quality really great, and then make sure that you're consistent. I mean, that's number one. I mean, how often do you post your podcast?
I try every week.
Once a week?
Really, in that for a while, is really consistent with every week I had an episode. But again, it got to that point with like scheduling where I would realize I don't have an episode this week because I couldn't get a scheduled time for this person or that person. And I try not to do too many solo episodes for my podcast just because I want the focus to be on my guests and their cold brew. So I mean, occasionally I've had like solo episodes where I'll pop on. And like, for example, I did a guide for buying cold brew at the grocery store, or here's like the top 5 cold brew spots in San Diego, or, this or that. But I mean, for the most part, I want it to be guests, right?
Yeah.
So there was a period earlier this year where it was like an episode a month, which killed me inside because I want to be creating content all the time, right?
Oh, an episode a month?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh, that broke my heart. I was so sad. But luckily now, like, the ball's been rolling and I've been able to get back into that habit of once a week. But yeah, that was really tough. And that's going back to, again, being so niche. Like, I can't just bring anyone on my podcast. It has to be cold brew people. And my one rule with my podcast guests is I have to have tried their cold brew and like it, right? So I've had people reach out to me wanting to be on the podcast, and I have to tell them, like, I haven't tried your cold brew, and I don't tell them this, but I'm not going to have someone that has bad cold brew be on the show, right? I need to try it to know that I like it,
Well, you need your influencing, right? When you're
influencing.
when you're being the cold brew chick and people are going to meet you, or they're going to see you at these coffee fests or whatever, they're going to assume that you know what you're talking about because everybody in the industry will be like, oh, You tried the Seven Seas cold brew, you loved it. That place is really good. I like that, kind of thing like that.
Yeah, dropping
But
some Seven Seas.
just dropping it in there. But it's the point is like if people do know and then they try and they're like, oh, she knows what she's talking about and it was good, they're gonna trust you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you be like, yeah, this Johnny Sue cold brew came on the show, it was amazing, and they paid you, or they even were like, hey, I just want to be on your show, and you're like, yeah, come on, and then you tried the product and you were like, oh, this is actually like trash.
Yeah.
And people wouldn't trust you anymore. It's just, I think that's also in today's day and age, especially with Instagram and being real in real life. It's like if you betray your listeners or your followers' trust, they're not gonna, they're not ever gonna take you serious.
Yeah, and
so
that's what's been hard too. Is like with reviewing cold brews and whatnot. Is like keeping that trust. I have to be open and honest when I don't like a cold brew or when I have something that doesn't taste good or a bad experience. And it kills me. I hate posting bad reviews. Hate it. Because I don't want to bring a company down, but I also don't want bad cold brew to exist. There's a standard for cold brew now that I think that's out there because there is so much and people have perfected it so much. So I want it to be good. I want every cold brew I try to be the best one that there ever was, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. To keep that trust and to keep, being as like this authority for cold brew, you have to be honest. So
well, I mean, I think it's with anything too. Maybe that feedback, and I like to look at the glass half full, is maybe that feedback of you saying, hey, this cold brew's not the best, or yeah, it's trash. Maybe somebody will be like, you know what? She's right. We need to fix this. We got to get it back. And then maybe they'll be like, hey, try it again or something like that. Me, myself, I can actually relate this to this past week is that my friend up in Portland who actually works for Modern Times.
Hey.
He actually is from here, but he transferred up there. He was saying, hey, man, love the podcast. It's great. But he's like, and your content's good, all whatever. But he's like, the volume is off. Like, and I noticed too, when I listen to it, when I master it, it sounds good here, but I was missing a crucial step that I had to take about 2 hours out of the day to learn how to fix it. And so now I could turn the volume up good. So that way, when you're in the car, you have to blast it all the way to like just hear a little bit. You're going to be able to like do it better, but I needed that feedback. It's, it's only, I think it sounds good, but you also need that feedback from your listeners and your core people. And it helped me, change and elevate because, if you're getting it from the source or getting that feedback, then you're only going to be as good as you think you are. And you get that feedback. It's like, okay, needed that, like a little check. And then, just keep it pushing. So hopefully,
Preach it.
Hopefully that's how people would like to look at it. Maybe some other people will, of course, be like, oh, whatever, like use some profane words, but whatever, you're going to get better. So I think it's just as much needed as like good compliments are for sure, for me at least. But aside from meeting these people and like fangirling, like what has there been any like super successful just like the best episode or moments that you were like, damn, I'm super stoked I started this podcast because it afforded me this experience that I'm doing at this moment? Or
I've had, and this is the funny thing with like, again, influencing and blogging and Instagram and whatnot, is your follower count doesn't tell the whole story, right? It doesn't tell you about the people that have DM'd you asking for cold brew advice or, just like unique situations that really showcase your value, right? And I've had, what's been the coolest thing is people reaching out to me who listen to the podcast and one guy lived in Great Britain and one guy lived in Indonesia, and they asked me for their opinion on creating a cold brew because they wanted to sell it in their country.
Tight.
And that to me was the coolest thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, these people are looking to start a business and they're asking for my input of like what beans they should use and, what should their cold brew taste like. And they've loved the podcast because it's just hearing alone that it's brought people value has been so great. It's just like, oh, it makes my heart sing. But those two unique experiences alone was just like, oh my gosh. Like, I think maybe because of the fact it was international too. It was just like that extra cherry on top. But that was really cool.
I dig that. The international thing has been really, really kind of a cool thing for me. I figured for sure I would have listeners in California. It's like this is where I was born and raised. Yeah. Been all up and down the state in the major cities. But when it was, do you use like Libsyn? Or okay, yeah, so do I. you have that map, and then all of a sudden the map
Yeah.
is just like getting more full, and the states that get darker, the ones that are listening to you, and then you see the world map, and you're like, I don't even know, no, like. I was thinking maybe if, not to sound weird or anything, but it was like if there was one in Russia or something like that, it'd be like a Russian bot or something like that. But then it's like I get France, and then you see starting like multiple numbers, like 23 downloads of almost every every episode that you've done, and it's like, dude, I don't even know nobody in France. How did this fool find me? Like, or what? Or Instagram, whatever. But then you start looking, and it's like South Africa, Argentina. These, I'm like, dude, what the hell? Like, that's so sick. I think it's
Right?
so legit. I mean, I actually have this coming weekend. Speaking about scheduling, shout out to my homie Raleigh. He's actually coming from Vegas. He owns this brand called Farmers Market, and he's gonna come. And we've been trying to, go back and forth to get him here. But now he's like, hey, I have time during this one slot. He's gonna come on Sunday, and I'm gonna like hit one. I'm gonna hit that podcast in the morning and then one in the evening. But he's coming with his like business partner or something like that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's this girl, Keisha. And we were at a party in Las Vegas probably a couple months ago. And I was with my brother-in-law, and she knows my brother-in-law because they all work out together. And she like came up to me, and my brother-in-law was like, hey, Keisha, this is Kano. This is my brother-in-law. And she's like, hey, nice to meet. Are you the Caffeine and Green guy? And I was like, what? First time, I don't even know this girl, and I was like, yeah, that's me. And she's like, oh my God, I love your show, blah, blah, blah. I started saying all, she's like, I listen to all your show. Like, I was like, what? I don't even know you. And it was like, that shit right there was so sick.
Mm-hmm.
I was so stoked. I was like, hell yeah. So this coming Saturday, she's coming with him, and they're going to be on the show. And I was like,
Yeah.
sick. It's just, I don't know. It makes it kind of like all worth it, because you're like, dude, oh, what? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know you. You've heard my voice, and you've heard me talk to my guests, and it's like, dude,
Yeah,
fuck yeah.
recognition.
Yeah, it's like sick, dude. I'm about that. And it also gives you like a little bit more motivation. Like, yeah, people are listening, so just keep going. Like with anything, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so what else? What made you want to start going to conventions and stuff? Just to meet the people, just to kind of keep the podcast going, or is it more for like a personal?
When I first started going, it was to just network and get my name out there. Because the first one I ever went to was Coffee Fest in Portland. And this was like maybe 4 or 5 months after I'd started Brew Chick. And I just had heard about Coffee Fest, and I heard it was like this great hubbub for coffee people. And then I saw that there was America's Best Cold Brew competition. And for me, I'm thinking, just being a fan of cold brew, like, oh, I want to go to that. Like 32 cold brews from across the nation competing, and one of them is going to be the best one. Like, I have to go. And
right up your alley.
Exactly, yeah. So I made it work, and I ended up going. But those trips ended up being incredibly valuable, because that's where I actually met Seven Seas. That's where I met Mark and Eric for the first time.
In Portland?
Yeah, in Portland. That was the first time we ever met.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And they kind of like took me under their wing, because I was there by myself, and I'm not, quite comfortable with traveling by myself. It's just, as a girl, as a woman, it's not the safest thing to do nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So they were really great, because again, we'd never met before, but we were both from San Diego, and kind of talked about who we were and what we did. And they kind of just took me under their wing, and I hung out with them for the weekend. Them and another company called Steeping Giant, another San Diego cold brew company. But because of that trip, like, I have those two friendships with those two companies that I'll always have. And then going to Expo West, I'd been before for something else. I was working for a chocolate company, but I knew that cold brew was there. So just going there, I knew I wanted to check out all the cold brews. I had no idea that there was so many. There were 50 cold brew companies at Expo West. 50. Just that blows
from the whole nation, essentially. Yeah.
And that's not even, all of them, but just 50 alone at this convention. Like, to me, it was invaluable to be able to talk to people face to face, because people that go to these shows are the CEO, the marketing manager. They're the head honchos. They're not the person running the Instagram, right? I'm sure we've all been there, where we message an Instagram account of a company or someone famous or whatever, and they never reach you, or they never open your message, right? And to be fair, like, I'm sure they're bombarded with just messages every day, right?
Yeah, of course.
But to be able to just talk to people just one-on-one right then and there was super, like, valuable. And then to be able to try their products that hadn't been released yet. Like, how could I not go? Like, it's just so cool. So
Nice.
yeah, so I make an effort now to go to Expo West every year, and then Coffee Fest as much as I can. And like the LA one here is coming up in August.
Yeah, we actually are gonna be. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be going,
Mm-hmm.
but we're encouraging all of our baristas who want to, of course, to enter the barista competition.
Yeah.
But I know that the competition is very, very tough and it's very stacked. I mean, we have our Orange County location. Our manager up there, she entered and they said we'll get back to you in like 3 days. It's like, whoa, if she can compete. Like, so I'm like, damn, they're high level of competition at these things, and I'm like, damn, all right. But that's one avenue I think we're gonna try to go down, and we're gonna bring up San Diego people as well. And if anybody wants to get involved, like, do it. That'd be sick.
Are you going to compete in the cold brew competition?
I don't know, probably.
You should.
I mean, I haven't talked to Eric about it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're entering a couple other competitions right now. We're going to be doing a roaster of the year, and we're also going to be doing, or I'm going to be doing the U.S. Coffee Championships.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to at least try to qualify for it,
Mm-hmm.
for the roasting aspect. I don't know. That's more of a personal one, I guess, but that's going to be roasting. Then roaster of the year would be sick. That's through Roast Magazine.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there was actually an article in there that I thought about you when I was reading it the other day. It was like the secret behind cold brew or something like that. But it was in a more recent edition of the Roast magazine. But I'll have to show you. I can't remember what it is right now. But so essentially, what is on the like future plans for the Cold Brew Chick?
On the horizon.
On the horizon, yes.
More content. Honestly, just different types of content. So I started with just doing reviews, but now I've grown to the podcast. I've grown to YouTube, that's where I reviewed cold brew makers. And now I still try to utilize more video content if it's appropriate. Because that's also where people are going. People like to see things, and like to see people, instead of just pictures of cold brew. So just more cold brew content, more creating beans into cold brew and seeing how those turn out. I'm partnered with Coffee Fest now, so showcasing more with them and kind of doing behind the scenes work with them. And then
Coffee Fest, the one we're just talking about?
Yeah.
So what are you doing with them?
So I help cover the cold brew competition for them on their Instagram, and just kind of showcase, because my favorite part of doing that is highlighting all the people that are competing. Coffee Fest is such a large platform and has such a huge audience. So to even mention these roasters or these shops that are competing gives them an audience, with sharing on Instagram and whatnot. So I just help them out with kind of giving recognition to all these competitors and maybe give them some publicity and
Sick.
help them out. Yeah.
Damn, that's tight.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been fun to see now at this point, having done it 2 years, to see it grown into actual like partnerships and sponsorships and more collaboration with people and whatnot. But yeah, I just the horizon's open. As long as my thing is, I'll always be cold brew focused. And just with that, kind of see where things take me.
Nice. And then you're also going to be a dietitian now.
Yeah, now I have to study for the exam.
So what does that entail?
It's a very lengthy, extensive exam. It's like an MCAT, what doctors take. It's kind of the same thing except for dietitians. Except we get questions on like labor laws and leadership and things you wouldn't think a dietitian would need to know, So once I pass that, it's literally find a job, and more so find a job so I can put more money back into Cold Brew Chick and support it.
Sick. Yeah. So you're really you're in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah. You're just trying to
as long as
keep going.
As long as I love it. That's my number one rule, is I always have to be doing something I love. So if I still love doing Cold Brew Chick, I'll keep doing it, and then the day I don't love it anymore, I'm done.
Yeah.
But I don't see that happening anytime soon at all.
Yeah, especially with these partnerships with Coffee Fest. I mean, that's a big deal because it's a big coffee expo.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. So are you essentially doing like a takeover of their Instagram, just like keeping people up to date, running their story, or?
Yeah. And any like fun booths that are there, or like for example at Indianapolis they had a roaster bring like a truck, and you could go to the truck and roast your own beans. So like covering that, so people knew what was going on there. But covering just the cold brew competition alone is like a just a job in that because there's so many competitors and so much going on. I have to stay on top of who won, and everything. And yeah, it's a lot.
How is it set up? Is it like, it obviously isn't head to head. It's everybody against each other at once. Is there rounds?
No, it's rounds and head to head. So
it is.
Yeah, what happens is you have 32 cold brews, right? 16 still and 16 nitro. And what happens is there's 4 rounds, 2 rounds for the still, 2 rounds for the nitro, and there are 8 competitors in each round. And how it goes is you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1 and 2 are going against each other. 3 and 4 are going against each other, and so on and so on. And when you go down the row, you're trying number 1's cold brew, you're trying number 2's cold brew, and then you vote between 1 and 2, which one is your favorite. And then you do it for all the other cold brews. And then whoever wins goes on to the next round.
Is it already pre-made, or do they have to brew on site essentially? I mean, obviously they can't brew on site, so it's just...
Yeah, you pre-made. You bring a keg, and then they have a line system for you.
Oh, okay. So you have a keg. Mm-hmm. That's legit. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was like, how are they going to do that?
That's what I'm saying. 7C should compete.
I mean, are the slots still open for competition?
Probably.
I mean,
I'm gonna probably text Eric after this and bug him.
Yeah, you should definitely hit him up because I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah. He knows. Last year at LA, we all went together and checked out the competition.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Okay. We'll have to definitely check that out.
Yeah, we're gonna bug Eric about this.
Well, I wasn't with the company yet, but I know that I think they won the one in San Diego, right? The one that happened last year?
Did they?
Or did we? Or did we?
I don't remember. That's another one. I mean, San Diego, we have our own cold brew competition that we have. And that one, I don't remember.
Yeah, I wasn't there, but I've heard something about that before where we did really well in some cold brew competition. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Hell yeah. That's tight. But, yeah, well, cool. I mean, you sound like you have a lot of good things happening. And obviously, so from the beginning of the conversation, I was talking about if you can get paid to do that. I mean, like, dude, so you're crushing it right now in Road Coffee Fest. I mean, yeah, more power to you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else that you got coming up other than that?
Just those things. Finding a job. I mean, finding a job is like my number one focus right now. I'm just so hungry to get back to work. And then just be able to put more money back into Brew Chick because it does. I mean, as you know, like podcast equipment costs money.
Yeah.
Running a website costs money. And I'm happy to do it, but you gotta have it,
Yeah.
So
do you look at it like it's a passion project in a sense where, my belief is definitely I can work 9-10 hours a day for somebody else. That's fine. But if I come home and, after maybe a half hour chilling by myself or just like kind of decompressing, I have to do something for myself. Mm-hmm. Like work on something that I want to do. Case in point, Caffeine and Green, or I'll go hit the gym or doing something for yourself. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, if I just can't come home and just do nothing, do you look at your podcast and the Instagram and all these other things? Do you look at that as more of like, you're working on your passion, something that you want to do for yourself, by yourself. Mm-hmm. Nobody else can take that from you. Like you're the sole creator of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I thrive. I like to be different. Let me put it that way. I like to be the only one or one of few that's into something or doing something, right? And when it comes to cold brew, there's not very many people out there that do what I do, which is essentially reviewing and covering it, right? And as of now, I would consider myself to be like the number one person, right? Of all the people doing it, I have the most followers, I have the most platforms and whatnot. And I love having that title. It sounds a little selfish, but I like that. I like that it's mine, and I like it that it's something I worked hard on, and that I am that one person. I like to call myself the number one resource for all things cold brew, whether it's drinking it, making it, selling it, whatever. Like I want to be that resource for people because I love it so much and I want it to be represented in a good light. So yeah, I mean, for a long time, my dad called it my expensive hobby, which I mean, I was fine with. But now that he's realized like, oh, like you can actually maybe make a little bit of money from this. Like, oh, now he's thrilled and thinks it's the coolest thing.
Exactly.
But even if I made no money, I would still do it because I love it, and I love cold brew, and I love what it's done for me, and I'd love to see that happen for others as well.
Tight. Yeah. Well, I mean, fuck. I love that. That's, yeah, I don't know. I think about like just for my own podcast when I do this, this is 100% what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And
kind of what you were talking about, how you found a niche and you're the number one source in that. For me, I didn't think I could just do coffee because I have so many other homies. And just like you were saying, you can't have like just anybody on your show.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I definitely wanted to have all the different avenues of homies that I have, because why not have a pro skateboarder with, you know, the owner of Ironsmith, like shout out Matt. But
Ironsmith, Encinitas.
Yep, all the homies. You got Lofty right down the way.
Lofty, Encinitas, and Little Italy.
Yeah, all over. There's one in Solana too.
And Solana Beach.
Yeah, all the homies, and that's Siri Cimarron, and then, you know, the Sprocast and all them. But I also have other homies like my homie Lefty and other skateboarders like Sharika and all these other dudes. And it's like, dude, hell yeah, just spread it out. Like, I just want everybody to come on for the most. I mean, within reason. I mean, if you're not doing much and you're just like, everybody who I have on, I feel like yourself, dude, you're doing so much. You're hustling. And that's the one reason I wanted to have people on. I mean, I'm super glad that you came on and I got to hear what it is that you got to do. And now it's leading you to things like Coffee Fest and making, essentially, you're getting paid for what you love to do. And that's the most important thing.
Exactly.
Period.
Yeah.
Like, if nobody else can really understand it, whatever, that's fine. But at the same time, you're doing you followed your passion. It's led you to being in this house right now. Like, I would have never met you had you not come to the coffee shop and just like engaged and just talked and had a common denominator, which was coffee in this sense. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Dude, yeah, I think it's really awesome that we got to talk and I got to hear about this, because I honestly was genuinely curious and I didn't know what to expect.
You just saw a random girl on her laptop in 7 Cs and what the heck is she doing?
No, Eric was like, that's the cold brew chick. And I was like, again, thinking about the cold brew chick, I was like, she's really cool with that. But I loved it. And I think that was super sick. And we lined up scheduling perfectly. But yeah, I mean, it gives me some some hope in a sense, and not in a negative way, like that I'm like defeated or something, but it's like, dude, yeah, if you just keep going, just keep getting after it, somebody's gonna notice, or a lot of people will start to notice. And that's the most inspiring thing ever. I mean, that's just a motto for life, right? Just keep going. Eventually it will click, or somebody will take notice, and it's all your hard work and the hours and sacrifices that you've made to do even what you're doing. People be like, they'll take notice and they'll be like, fuck yeah, the person's hustling.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
That's right. You're a podcast you can cuss on.
Oh, dude, yeah, all day. Which that's what I was saying about earlier. I was like, dude, if you wanted to smoke weed, you could totally do that. But no drinks, no weed, just straight water. And that's actually, I wanted to bring that up to you. Is like, I mean, as a cold brew, you're probably not swearing and you're probably not drinking beers and stuff like that. But I've, because of the name of the show, I've definitely had people like, you know, man, I don't know. People are really weird about like my job might not like me smoking weed or whatever. I'm like, dude, you totally don't have to smoke weed. Like, if you don't want to smoke weed, you don't want to drink, totally fine. If you were like, yo, give me a coconut water, some kombucha, got you, no problem. You know,
shoot, I should have asked for kombucha.
Oh no, that's what I mean. I need to refine that little section of drinks. I'm just like, I put anything at all, but like I've had people ask me for that. It's like, dude, totally fine. But then I was telling you earlier, is people have asked me for like gin with a lemon and a lime, a couple ice cubes, like
so fancy,
dude. You know, but it's all love. It's all good. But anyways, go on for days about that. Tell the people where they can find you. You know, Instagram, YouTube's, whatever.
Cold Brew Chick on everything.
On everything.
I got lucky and I claimed that title on everything.
Is it no spaces, all one word, Cold Brew Chick? All
one word, Cold Brew Chick, coldbrewchick.com. I'm on Twitter even though I don't use it. I just wanted to go claim it.
Yeah, that's too much negativity on that for me. Yeah. I can't deal with that.
I can't, no Twitter.
But so Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff.
Podcast is Cold Brew Chick Podcast.
Is it iTunes, Spotify?
iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, now also iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio, huh?
Yeah, I didn't even do that. I just got an email saying I was on iHeartRadio.
Dude, and you have a GIF. You have your own GIF on Instagram. Yeah. Just put in cold brew, or just put in Cold Brew Chick. Her GIF will pop up.
Yeah.
Straight up. I thought that was amazing, by the way.
I love it. The only thing that stinks about GIFs is you have no idea when someone's using it unless you see it. It's not like you get a notification saying, Caffeine and Green used your GIF. Dude. Like, so for all I know, a lot of people no one's using it. I would never know unless I looked on someone's stories. But that is a really cool thing. We're talking about like cool moments. When I look on like a stranger's story, or I see like a reposted story and I see someone use my GIF, and I'm like, hey, that's my GIF. And I'll go message them and I say, thanks for using my GIF. And they're like, what? Who are you? But
don't worry about it. Perfect. Okay. Well, then I will definitely probably see you at the coffee shop then.
Oh, you will most definitely, absolutely likely sing at the Seven Seas.
And we're gonna we know somebody. So Eric, we need to make sure we get in the cold brew competition at LA Fest, LA Coffee Fest.
Yes.
All right. Thank you again, Rachel.
Thanks.
Peace.